The San Pedro Bay in Southern California serves as the U.S. entry point for 40% of the nation's imported goods, especially items manufactured in China and other leading countries of East Asia. Within the San Pedro Bay, the twin ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach provide leased waterfront space for 13 container terminals. For the past 40 years, physical growth at the ports, combined with a steadily increasing volume of throughput, has generated major environmental concerns in local, often overburdened communities. Incremental, constant growth has precipitated the implementation of numerous regulatory mandates and legislative initiatives designed to reduce the impact of emissions and associated health hazards. Also, proactive industry-supported programs and related public-private mitigation efforts have been undertaken to address air quality and congestion problems before they reach the legislative or regulatory stage. A recent National Center for Sustainable Transportation study conducted by the Center for International Trade and Transportation at CSULB analyzed the impacts and results of these multifaceted mitigation approaches in the San Pedro Bay ports. Due to the evolving nature of the impacted supply chain, the ongoing fallout from the COVID-19 pandemic, and the various economic shifts caused by changing consumer patterns and lifestyles, the CITT Quick Strike analysis reveals where sustainability issues stand in the wake of disruption and turbocharged supply chain demand. The initiatives in these case studies are works in progress, buffeted by the global challenges affecting all port complexes.
There's always a risk in using case study when you're trying to draw conclusions that are more broadly defined, that may have an impact at a regional level, at a national level, or within an individual economic sector. So I'm always cautious when we use cases, but I think what the benefit is you can dig deeper into looking at all the layers of coordination. You can look at the reasons why people do what they do in terms of the regulatory agencies designing programs, the response of the industry to those programs, and the impact that they have on the operators of the freight system and the communities through which freight passes. And so understanding those layers is valuable to others who are going to be asking similar questions in different settings.
For the better part of the last 2 decades, the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach have formulated a Clean Air Action Plan, known as CAP. The CAP was written and adopted, in part, to shape the direction of air quality management and greenhouse gas reduction in the harbor area. The plan has evolved over time to incorporate new innovations, new goals, and new mandates by state and regional authorities. Within the CAP framework are several specific activities involving technology advancements, ocean-going vessel speed reduction plans, and cleaner truck programs. Related but separate to the CAP initiatives is a proposed International Gateway rail facility. Technology advancement programs have included a major movement to reduce emissions in marine terminals through implementation of cleaner technologies, including electrification, as part of a statewide move toward zero-emission freight systems. This effort requires substantial investments by terminal operators in cutting-edge alternative fuel options and battery-powered cargo handling equipment. Concern about capital investment in short-term solutions while regulatory mandates evolve leaves marine terminal operators anxious about so-called stranded assets. Also, operational time limitations for vehicles on fully charged batteries are an impediment that requires more technological evolution.
I think what's most encouraging is the way that, at least in Southern California, the responses to the environmental challenges, while responding to state legislative mandates in some cases, are really being led by the industry itself. It's the port sector, it's the trucking community that have found ways to drive innovation in a way that I think creates something of a Southern California approach to environmental mitigation, one that we know is being adopted elsewhere.
Vessel emissions in the harbor constitute one of the most significant sources of harmful air quality in the waterfront community. The Vessel Speed Reduction Initiative is a voluntary program encouraging cargo ships to reduce the speed of travel for the last 40 nautical miles into the harbor. Reducing vessel speed can lessen the fuel burned and lower the volume of emissions generated on the last leg of the sea voyage as it terminates on the west coast. This voluntary vessel speed reduction initiative is impacted by sailing schedules and landside operations that must work hand in hand with vessel operations to ensure a smooth-flowing supply chain. And despite the plan's goals, not all modern vessels are created equal in terms of the ratio of speed to emissions. Clean truck programs have combined public grant funding and private owner investment. The goal has been to remove and replace all older model diesel trucks with much newer and cleaner burning engines. The state of California's most recent mandates have been pushing the clean truck programs further towards zero-emission vehicles. Meanwhile, the local trucking industry is undergoing a transition from majority owner-operated vehicles to mostly large company fleet-owned trucks. This transition has moved the ball forward for the cleaner truck effort, but at the loss of independent truckers and total truck availability in times of greatest need. The proposed Southern California International Gateway, known as SCIG, is a joint effort between the Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad and the Port of Los Angeles. The goal is to move massive quantities of container freight bound for cross-country rail to a yard about 4 miles away from the congested harbor. From the new container yard, rail loading would be fast and efficient. The initiative has been stalled by multiple legal challenges from overburdened communities and the city of Long Beach. Additionally, an early environmental impact report was ruled inadequate by a superior court, while plaintiffs claimed the report was troubling in its omissions. As part of its case studies analysis, the research team conducted interviews with stakeholders and people knowledgeable about the various initiatives, compiled and reviewed official documents from various agencies, read online industry journals, examined public port stakeholder communications, and digested media reports. The careful review of materials and reports indicated that various mitigation programs are facing challenges because of the following practical problems. 1. Disagreement among stakeholders about key program solutions. 2. The seemingly moving target aspect of the supply chain demand cycle. 3. Business and economic pressures on industry. And 4. An increasingly obvious tension between the immediate goals related to climate change action, technological limits, and other obstacles that include an ever-increasing, seemingly endless demand for consumer goods.
I think the lesson is that in addressing environmental challenges, you can't be reactive. You've got to be strategic. And that means making sure that the policy doesn't get ahead of the technology. If you're going to mandate certain changes that require an electric charging infrastructure or a commercially available product, make sure that those pieces are in place before the regulations are applied. That's, I think, key. The other thing for long-range planning on the part of the state is that having the industry and the operators involved from the beginning will help tremendously because they want to be partners at the table. They want some of the same outcomes. They just want to have the day-to-day reality of their operations be taken into account when those policies are made.
Ultimately, the balancing act will continue. Other port complexes may gain insight from the travails of the San Pedro Bay ports, as similar trials might confront all port communities in the future.